Hi, this is Kevin Pawlak from Emerging Civil War, and I'm standing here in the parlor, or the recovery room, as you can see around me, of Ben Lomond Historic Site, what was known as the Pringle House Hospital, following the Battle of First Manassas, or First Bull Run. Starting on the afternoon of July 21st, while the battle was still raging about a mile and a half off to our north, on July 21st, Hunter Holmes McGuire, the chief surgeon of Stonewall Jackson's brigade, or soon to be Stonewall Jackson's brigade, the Stonewall Brigade, came here and visited the Pringle house, and he told the Pringle family that was living here, 3 Pringle men, that the home was going to be used as a hospital. Of course, he did not give them much of a choice in the matter. The only choices that he gave the Pringles was basically that they could stay in the house and be confined to one room for their living quarters while the house was used as a hospital, or the Pringle family could make the decision to leave instead. Ultimately, the Pringles decided to stay in the house, and so the 3 men were confined to the master bedroom upstairs during the 36 days that this house was used as a field hospital, from July 21st up until August the 25th. Now, throughout the day of July 21st, more and more wounded streamed back from the area of Henry House Hill back towards this house and other hospitals, other Confederate hospitals in the area. Most of those wounded that made it back here were not brought back by wagon or ambulance. Instead, many of them had to walk or be carried back by stretcher. Of course, both sides were very much unprepared for the amount of casualties that they were going to have to deal with on July 21st. So because of the nature of the infancy, really, of the Confederate Medical Corps, and the fact that it was beginning to rain the night of July 21st, and thunder and lightning as well, everything, all surgical operations, a waiting room, so to speak, if you want to call it that, and the recovery room was moved inside of the house, meaning that this entire house was filled, packed with wounded soldiers from all over the Confederacy. Soldiers from Mississippi, Georgia, and Virginia are some of the soldiers that we do know were treated here, in fact. The setting for the hospital was here on the main road, or one of the main roads that Confederate troops took to get to the battle, and so that's part of the reason so many of them were transported back here, and why Hunter Holmes McGuire selected this place as a hospital on that July 21st day. So one of the soldiers that was brought here and treated here at the Pringle House Hospital is represented by this uniform coat that we have lying over here. It's, of course, the uniform of a Confederate lieutenant colonel, and that lieutenant colonel was William Fitzhugh Lee, who we have pictured here as well. Lee was a second cousin to Robert E. Lee, and Willie Lee was wounded seriously in the chest during one of the 33rd Virginia's charges against Griffin's guns, Charles Griffin's guns, on Henry House Hill. He was brought back here to the Pringle House, where he was cared for by multiple surgeons here in the parlor of the hospital itself. William Fitzhugh Lee's wife came to visit him and be with him. Her name was Lily Parrin Lee, and she traveled down from the Shenandoah Valley to be with her husband. She was very optimistic that initially he might recover, but ultimately 8 days after receiving his wound, Willie Lee died of gangrene. His remains were brought back to Shepherdstown, Virginia at the time, now West Virginia, and he still rests in Elmwood Cemetery. Lily Parrin Lee, for the rest of her life, never remarried, the next 55 years of her life, and she wore the black mourning garb of a widow for the rest of her life, so never quite recovered from the scenes that she saw here. A couple of other stories that we know of. Young hospital steward Edward Craighill wrote memoirs talking about his experience here at the Pringle House Hospital, and one of the things that he mentioned was that the night of July 21st, after being so exhausted from performing hours and hours and hours of endless surgery, he looked for a place to rest, a place to lie down within the house, but he wrote in his memoirs that there is not a single place for a well man to rest. And so Craighill had to go outside into the rain, find a tree to seek shelter, and when he lay down underneath that tree, he lay down between 2 other prone men. When he woke up in the morning, he realized that those 2 men had perished, and he spent the rest of his life wondering if they had perished during the night while he lay between them, or if they had already been dead when he, in fact, got outside. So there's many more stories to be discovered here at Ben Lomond. We're always uncovering new stories about this place. It seems like almost every single month, trying to track down more and more of the soldiers that were here. But if you come to Ben Lomond and visit us, here you'll find a very interactive site. We have not just sites and some of the uniforms that you can see here, but what it was like as a hospital. We also have smells, both good and bad smells. We have sounds of what a hospital might have been like. There are things that you can taste. Everything within here is pretty much something that you can touch and interact with as well. So it's one of the more unique historic sites in all of Northern Virginia, and we hope that you will come out to visit us. But this has been Kevin Pawlak with Emerging Civil War signing off from Ben Lomond Historic Site.